Yeah, and then I don't know if because mine's so puny, I don't know if mine has that 30-second commercial
I
in the
don't know. It shows
beginning
we're
or
live.
not.
So
So,
no, I think the
anyways,
30-second delay is mainly if you're monetized.
okay. Well, I'm not.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not
So I think we're
monetized.
live. We're talking in front
Oh
of people.
shoot! I it's supposed to be on Rumble, and I didn't go get the code for it.
Uh
See,
oh.
this is my morning. Good morning, people.
Right.
Welcome to my
Tech time with the
unoffensive.
Holstein house.
Um, yeah, yeah. I got time with the Holstein now. That's right. Um, I'll be getting another nasty gram from Afro the Mix over on Fountain FM.
Uh oh.
He gave me he gave me like 3,000 sats, and then told
Wow.
me that it was he was tired. He didn't like having to wait or something, that I wasn't ready, and he'll be back in a few weeks to check out again to see if I'm doing any better. And I'm
Well, I mean,
thinking,
if he wants
what?
to pay you to complain, that's
Yeah,
okay. You
that's
know,
yeah.
hell,
So
your
I did
trolls
one of those
monetize
like
yourself. Your trolls monetize themselves.
yeah.
That's great.
So that
I want trolls like
right.
that.
So I used his account name, Afro that Mix, for a discount for the
Yeah,
rest
there you
of the
go.
month.
I saw the
In
discount, but I didn't see why. So, hey, next time you do that,
yeah,
include the story,
you
hype it up a little bit, so we know why we're
I
jumping.
did. I did. You
I
weren't
miss you. I miss
there.
you.
Ooh,
But
wait a minute. Save
yeah, but
changes.
oh,
I'm
fun
trying to
stuff,
fix
fun
this because I
stuff.
didn't go over to Rumble.
I mean,
But
if somebody
anyways,
wants to pay me to complain, they can. I'm just going to keep doing what they wanted me to not do because they can keep paying me to complain.
that's right. Right.
Anyway, let me
That's
not
right.
distract you. I know you got your show to start.
So anyway,
We're here.
welcome. Well, it kinda already started, but yeah, for to just for one of these days, if I'm ever monetized, then it needs to have that advertisement in the beginning. There it is. We just blew that out. This for the podcast, because I do record this and I do split the audio and I do make a podcast out of it. It would be episode 45.
Wow,
So 45 podcasts so for me over on
nice.
Fountain.
Congratulations.
And thank you very much. We'll be doing a 50th episode giveaway. And we'll use the StreamYard giveaway tool. And so we'll have folks come in, those who are live with us. Yeah, of course, you'll have to be there. I'll have three different things. I'll have a cup. I'll have two different types of cups. I'll have a tin cup. I'll have a ceramic cup with the Holstein House logo on it. And I'll have a t shirt, which I kind of have one on now, but I'm a little large for the view here. um, and I'll do three different giveaways, and we'll have three different hashtags, and you'll have to put the hashtag in the comments. And then the StreamYard giveaway tool will spin and pick somebody out of that. So
Okay.
that's going to be fun. And then I'll get everybody caught up that March is my anniversary month. I know we were talking about this a little bit on on the Lots project this morning and taking a little bit of ribbon on that. But yes, Mr. Holstein and I got married on St. Patrick's Day. It happened to fall on a
Nice.
Saturday, the Saturday of spring break. We were both adults going to college at the time, and we decided to get married and do it during spring break. And that happened to be the day. Plus, it helps him remember. It helps him
Now
remember.
you weren't. It wasn't after the St. Patrick's Day revelry that you decided this, was it? It wasn't like the
No,
"let's go to the courthouse now" type thing.
no,
This was
no.
planned.
We
Okay.
no, no. We planned it that way around the school calendar. We dated a couple years before we
Well,
got
that way
married. So
you can
yeah,
always get cheap drinks on your anniversary if you guys want to go out.
this is true. This is
Just have to make
true.
sure you wear green. Did you wear a green wedding dress? I hope.
There was green in the dress,
Okay,
but
good.
the wedding it would be highly inappropriate in today's world because of his he of the native blood that he has in his DNA. We did a themed wedding
Uh,
with a tear dress and tear shirts and a native Cherokee, the best that we could find wedding ceremony. It's hard to find that.
yeah.
You can't just look it up and find it on Google. You have
Well,
to kind of
with
piece
today's
it together.
society, if you're
So.
not being highly inappropriate, you're probably doing something wrong.
Yeah, well, I've been inappropriate since the '60s, so it's
Mm-hmm.
okay.
I see everybody's over in the comments here. You got everybody piling in this morning.
Do I really? I
Yeah,
haven't
we got
looked because
the full.
I'm trying to make sure that I hit all these highlights
There you
before I
go.
turn it over to you, and that's part of my still learning how to juggle all this. I don't have multiple screens. I do have um, uh, Clapper going, but I
Okay,
almost
cool,
always
cool.
get it. It's almost vulgar, always vulgar stuff over there. So
It's
I
hard
don't
to do
talk about it
interviews
too
on.
much.
I thought about doing that on TikTok too. You just can't really do it on interviews because you've got
Well, I
like
don't
all the
have enough
crowded
people
features.
for to do it on TikTok. You got to have more followers than what I've got.
Right,
But
right.
when Brian was talking about doing it over there, I thought, hey, I'm gonna try that. But I get a bunch of vulgar stuff. But that's okay. It's okay. I'll just ignore it anyway. But I'm not going to go through all the normal updates that I usually go through because I do have my special guest here, Josh, the
How
Renegade
special.
Butcher. And Josh and I haven't actually met face to face, but we've been talking online through some of the Telegram groups and the YouTube channels and stuff for a few weeks now. And I asked him if he'd come on and chat a little bit about just some basic home preparation of standard cuts of meat and poultry and
Mhm.
stuff like, you know, cutting up a whole chicken and stuff like that. And then a little bit of non-standard stuff like, you know, tongue, beef tongue.
Yeah.
I don't fix that, but I've been interested in fixing it. And maybe some other odd little cuts that we don't tend to think about. But the one thing I almost always ask, because I have this big long list of people, like 3 that I've
Mhm.
interviewed, is tell me about Josh 20 years ago. What were you doing 20 years ago?
20 years ago. Let me
Yeah,
think.
that's the
20 years
out
ago.
of left field question that,
Right.
you know.
Actually, 20 years ago, I would have still been in my late teens. So I
Okay.
was at home. Let me think here. Um, Man, 20 years ago was about right around when the World Trade Centers came down.
Yeah.
So that I remember that I was working out
Mhm.
in the garage and building random crap. I was that sheltered homeschool kid, so I read an entire encyclopedia and learned how to make explosives in the garage, much to my parents' chagrin. So mostly it was that, and I was mowing lawns as my first job,
Very good,
growing
very
up in
good.
rural Illinois. Well, small town right on the edge.
Okay. What was your first W-2 job?
My first W-2 job would have been, I want to say when I was 17. I started working at the little hometown, at the time it was an IGA grocery store,
IGA, we have those
IGA
here.
affiliate. It's just private owned. It was on the exact opposite side of town that I worked on. And usually
Mhm.
I'd walk or ride my bike the whole 6 blocks. I was on one edge of the city limits, they were on the other. So it tells you
Mhm.
about the size of the town that I was in.
Mhm.
I think we had 950 people total. And yeah, I worked there for, actually partway through college until I ended up moving out and moving up north a little bit closer to school. And yeah, I pretty much almost ended up managing the place. Worked in and out of everything except for the actual meat cutting. The owner did that. I'd help him
Mhm.
stock stuff and everything. I kind of kept in grocery as a side work all through college and then came back to it later on after a few career switches, but never got into the meat side until I moved to Texas about 8, 9 years ago now.
What'd you major in college?
Electronics engineering, believe it or not. I got into
Mm.
the ham radio thing really young too. That's another thing I was doing back in my teens.
Mhm.
Me and my dad both got into it. We're really involved with that and like the local weather spotting and stuff. Tornadoes are a big issue up there, so that was
Yeah.
a big part of that culture. And I actually was president of the ham radio club in the county for a while. So
Very
small
good.
group of guys, but yeah, I was a
Mr.
nerd.
President.
Still am.
Electronics, yeah, that my husband has that associate's degree. That's what he was taking at the West Virginia State. Well, at the time it was Community and Technical College. It's West Virginia State. It's just West Virginia State University. WVU doesn't say state. It's just West Virginia University. That's the
Yeah,
Mountaineers. That's the one that goes all over the world with their football team. West Virginia State is it still is historic black college, and
yeah,
it is was local for all of us. It was a community college, local for all
nice.
of us. But he's done very well with his degree. So
Yeah, I ended up going
he
to it. It was a technical school, which was
mm,
great because it was all career focused, and I didn't have nearly all the prereqs. I just had to like basically pass. Like a
yeah.
handful
What
of
was it?
math, engineering type questions and stuff. So
We had one of those here. I can't remember the name of it. ITT, was it ITT Technical College?
yeah, yeah, there's quite a few of them around there. Mine was Hamilton Tech, but they mostly did. They had an electronics program, I think they had CAD and they had medical coding that they really focused
That
on.
sounds like the same structure as ITT was
Very
here.
similar idea as
Yeah,
IT.
because
Yep.
they gave you just what you needed for the degree program, none of the fluff, no
I
art,
think
no history,
ITT
none
was
of that
more of like
stuff.
a franchise. They
Nerd
opened up
alert.
small ones, different areas. Yes. No, they opened up a bunch of different small community colleges, I think, all around that were tech focused, but they were like a franchise of it. This was just like a small independent tech school, but very much the same structure, same idea. I had some great instructors, though, some great teachers. In my homeschooling career in the high school days, we were doing a lot of correspondence type stuff, and I'd get into all kinds of shit that disagreements with the people grading my stuff, philosophical and religious disagreements, and
Yes.
they would
Oh, I
knock
can
me points
appreciate
even though
that.
I was technically right,
Yeah.
or it's that you didn't show your work the way we wanted type
Yeah.
stuff. So it was
Yeah.
really refreshing when I ended up getting into that level, and the instructors totally different. They don't care how you show your work. They'll show you how to do the work 16 different ways as long as you get to the right end result. So
Right.
that's about the time I realized that I'm not actually retarded. I'm just different.
Brian's having a blast trying to
Oh,
troll
he
you.
is. Yes, I
He's having
expected
a
him
blast trying to
to.
troll you.
He said
It's,
I majored in whiskey and women. No, that was
yes,
actually the
yes.
after college days, I believe, Brian. So,
And then Mike says you were avoiding being shipped off to the Marine. I guess it's the Marines, what he's saying.
probably,
Marine
yeah.
Corps.
Well, no.
No?
I debated that a little bit too, but no, it wasn't in me to go that way, just for philosophical reasons. Not that I have anything against the military. I don't like anybody telling me what to do.
That's a common thread
It's a
in
common
these
thread in a
in
lot of
these
people in these communities.
yes,
Yeah.
that's right. Because I'm very much the same way, and I have had a lot of difficulties in jobs. Although
I was
I
an
was
anarchist before I knew what it was. It's people
yeah,
call it
yeah.
problems with authority or whatever, but it's just literally I want to be able to make that choice. And if it comes down to it, if I've got to kill somebody, I want to damn well know that was my choice, not because someone else told me to. I've got to live with
Oh,
that. They don't,
well,
you know.
yeah. So
Yeah.
Mike says no, he meant the Middle East, not
Middle East.
so
Well,
yeah.
same thing.
So
Potentially
yeah,
to be Marine in the Middle East.
this is true.
But
This
either
is
way,
true.
yeah. No,
Yeah.
I try
I'm
to
not
avoid the Middle East.
yeah, I'm not full, and I only use this direction as an example, not to imply that they're
Right.
leftist or anything, but I'm not full on anarchist.
Oh yeah.
And I've said this before out loud and in public that I'm conservative leaning libertarian,
Oh
but
yeah.
I believe there are roles for the government. I just don't think there's as many as the rest of the government
You
thinks
what they
there are.
call a minarchist. You believe
Maybe,
minimal
maybe,
government. Yeah. That's they have all kinds of terms for it, and I hate terms. I hate labels. I hate
yeah,
boxes. So I'm just
yeah.
me. But
That's all right. I mean, I don't, and we've, Brian was talking a little bit about swearing this morning when he first got started, and I just don't do it. Y'all can do it if it's on you. It's not on me, but I just don't swear. I,
oh no,
I
that's
very
fine.
rarely, let me just say, I very rarely swear because there have been times I have let a few fly,
Now,
but
if any of you
I know a
viewers make
few
their
of
way
them.
over to my podcast tonight, just know I'm probably going to swear. It's most
Oh,
likely.
you're gonna. It's just that's how
If
you
I can
are.
make it through this interview without swearing, you should be very impressed.
Well, you made it. You made it through the first few seconds of
Right. Well,
So yeah, there we go.
kept that 8 seconds so you can maybe eventually monetize
Yeah,
this episode. Right. Yeah.
that might happen. I'm not gonna like fight it, but I'm not gonna.
Right.
It'll be a long time yet.
Right.
But is that why you have not installed Moon? Oh, see you, Ronaldo.
Oh,
Ronaldo's after me. Let me get Brian through a little bit of what he came here for. It's because I don't like being told what to do. I haven't because Ronaldo told me to use Moon. I guess you pronounce it Moon, MUN.
I think that's how it's pronounced. Yeah, I haven't
So
personally used that wallet myself, but
yeah,
that's what I use. But I've heard good things about it.
but let's talk a little bit about butchery and home butchery and that stuff, and then we can go off to some of the other stuff. So
Yeah,
because we're 15 minutes in almost, and we haven't talked about
man.
butching anything yet.
About butching. Yeah. All right. Well, do you guys have any
But
specific
I don't mean
questions?
it's San Francisco butching either.
Right. Do you have any specific questions? Or you just want me to kind of dive into it?
No, just a little bit of general. I'm, a lot of the people who are going to be picking up on this most likely aren't as far into like smoking meats and all that
Right, right,
as detailed as you are. They're going to be closer to the, you know, um, I don't want to say just getting started, but minimally. I mean, you run out to Walmart, pick it up. But I
right.
want people to understand, and I know there's other YouTubes on the exact hows and stuff like that,
Mhm.
that it is, it can be cheaper, obviously depending on price, to do a lot of this yourselves. And what are
Right,
some of the larger cuts that you could get at the grocery? And it doesn't have to be a whole lot, maybe one pork,
right.
one beef, one chicken,
Yeah, yeah.
that you can pick up and actually trim up and cut yourself, you know, and get 4 or 5 meals out of instead of just 1 or 2, like if you run out
Absolutely.
and bought a package
Absolutely.
of
I
chicken
love
breast.
stuff like that. And social media has been really good for that. It has a lot of, there's a lot of downfalls of social media, but one of the really great things I've been seeing a ton of lately is a lot of content on exactly that.
Mhm.
Um, Obviously, if you're looking into stuff like this, um, follow Renegade Butcher. But
Yes,
check out
yes.
our Telegram group because we talk about stuff like that all the time. But if
Mhm.
you're on places like YouTube or TikTok or something, there's some really good content creators out there. Meat Dad's great. That's like his whole focus. He's a retail butcher and he's
Mhm.
always teaching people how to do this, buy the larger cuts. I try to focus on that a little bit too. But as far as just regular stuff you can buy from the store and break down, you had mentioned whole chickens.
Right.
That's one. It's really better to show a video of how to do it. I can kind of talk
Mhm.
you through it, and it'll make more sense if you see it. But I can share you some videos, probably up in your group too, on some really well done ones I've seen lately. But chicken, obviously, if you can buy it whole, typically you can buy it for way less per pound than you would buying the actual parts and pieces. There's
Mhm.
exceptions, but you have to know what to do with all of that. So once you've parted it out, it feels like you're wasting it because you're buying it with the bones in. That's what people always justify when they're buying boneless, skinless breasts. Save the bones, make stock out of them. There's a way
Mhm.
to use every part of that animal. But do pay attention to those prices on the shelf. Sometimes buying that large piece isn't actually even saving you that money. Or if it's 10 cents off a pound and you got to trim off quite a bit of extra fat that's on there, you may not be. Most of the time, you are. The ways
Um,
that I see the most value are going to be things like a pork loin. You buy a whole pork loin. Sometimes I can find a whole boneless pork loin for $1 to $2 a pound.
yeah.
Right now, I think my local store has it a buck 80 a pound. Um, you know what that is? That's one big log of boneless pork chops. You
Mm.
usually don't even need to trim those things up. You can just straight cut steaks, lay them on a cutting board, cut them to your preferred thickness with a sharp kitchen knife, and you're done. And those boneless pork chops are selling for $3 to $4 a pound right now.
Oh,
So
wow.
right there, that's a huge savings.
Mhm.
In fact, they were so cheap a couple years back; they were down to $1 a pound. I went and bought like 20 pounds of just pork loin and turned it all into like marinated fajita meat. I would.
Yeah, and I honestly, I know that. It's kinda like yesterday evening's, Brian's show yesterday evening. It's, I know that. Why didn't I think of that?
Right.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
pork loin, just
the
chuck.
convenience is there. It's
Mhm. Yeah.
easy to just grab the pack of pork chops. But if
Mhm.
you're doing a lot, if you're cooking a lot, or like you're cooking for other people, you need to have
Mhm.
some bulk amount.
Yeah.
You got to save every penny that you can, and it's not that much work. We've just kind of gotten away from
Right.
doing that so much at home. Pork butt is another really good one, but that's one typically you're going to cook whole. As far as the beef side, we covered this a little bit around Christmas because prime rib roasts will go on sale a lot of times.
Right.
Catch them a really good deal because they've got them out there in bulk.
Mhm.
Well, prime rib roast is ribeye.
Mhm.
So you can literally just cut that rack of ribs off if you want and have that. And that's, they call it the beef back ribs. It's the baby back ribs off of beef,
Mhm.
which is great. Or if you want to leave it bone in and just cut between the bones with your knife, you basically end up with tomahawk steaks or cowboy steaks, big bone in ribeyes.
Hmm.
But that heart muscle on that is just your ribeye meat. So it's not hard to break that down. I did a full breakdown video back in my group right around Christmas on that, and I ended up with a bunch of steaks. I had two huge steaks. I kept one for myself, and I sent one for Brian and Corey. They talked about. I think they had it on New Year's.
Yeah.
That turned out really good. But all the different little trim and everything that came out of it, and what I did trim off of it, I turned that all into ground beef. So if you've got a small
Yeah.
hand grinder or something at home, I tell you what, you can buy brisket when it's on sale for a lot of times under the price of hamburger and grind your own fresh at home. I get into that a little
Yeah, I
bit.
wouldn't have thought about using a brisket to do that.
Yeah, yeah, or those pork butts
See?
are perfect for making. If you take a pork butt, you can
Uh-huh.
almost just debone it, cut it up, run it through the meat grinder, add some seasoning to it, and you've got breakfast sausage right
Yeah,
there. That's all it takes. That's really all it takes. It's that simple.
yeah,
So,
that's
um,
true.
so that's one on pork. That's one on beef. Trying to think. We covered poultry, so I'm not going to try to tell you how to break down fish. But yeah,
Well,
there's a
I
lot of stuff like that, and a lot of different things that do come up. I mean, when we talk about beef cuts, we could spend the next 3 hours talking about all the different cuts of them. But
yeah, and it's hard without visuals, like you said,
it
to
is, it is. That's
with that.
the struggle for me running a podcast on this. It's hard for me to film the stuff and do it, but it's also hard for me to produce a podcast, and I can't sit in my car and show you how to cut meat.
Right.
So I wish I had a better data connection at the shop. I could do some more lives like that, but we'll do what we can.
You could always pre-record it, I
Right.
guess.
But that's why the groups are so cool too, because there's so much discussion in-depth technical stuff. We had Clark Deacon join the other day on there because he was in Tim's group
Mhm,
asking about it's his first time butchering sheep. And I was like,
mhm.
hey man, just go join the group. If I can't answer you, there's another butcher over there too. There's multiple people in the group and lots of people who have been through this. And it's exactly the content we need in that group. So, and
Mhm.
we had that. He was in the middle of that. His first one went a little rough. Second one went a little bit better. We had multiple people dogpiling information there. So it's a great resource for as you're getting into that. You can go say, hey guys, what do I do?
Um, yeah. Yeah, mine always go rough. I don't cut them enough to they'll never
It takes
I don't
practice. It's practice makes perfect.
yeah, that's very true. One of the things that when I do a video, because of the older house and all this, and I don't have a camera kitchen or whatever, I almost always will start with welcome to my not Pinterest ready kitchen because
Right.
I have an older stove. It looks
Mm-hmm.
terrible, even though it is clean. It looks terrible because it's worn. But and this falls into one of my favorites is it's got a standing pilot light. It doesn't need electric to light the
I
stove.
miss the old gas stoves like that.
It is.
Yep.
And people say, "Well, mine does too." Well, you or they can start theirs with a match. Yes, but you can start your electric start oven with a match,
But it
but
doesn't have the pilot light. Right.
right, and the first time it reaches temperature and it kicks off, because they kick off when they
Yep.
reach temperature and kick back on to save gas.
So unless you're
It's not
running
going
that at
to
full blast the whole time, we're
yeah,
just keep
it's going
relighting it.
yep, every few minutes. Yeah, and they're not nobody's going to do that. But
Yep.
that's just one of my things,
That's what I
Everybody
grew up
has their
with, and man,
things and
it's all electric down here. There's
yeah,
very little gas appliances, and I miss it. I
yeah.
really miss cooking on. It's why half the time I like to cook on a propane burner,
Mhm.
or I'll just do stuff in the smoker because I prefer
Yeah.
that. I find it easier to regulate that temp.
Yeah, and of course, I use a lot of the old cast iron and
I
stuff,
do
and I
too.
like that better on and I've used cast iron on a glass top ceramic
Yeah,
top stove, but you gotta be very gentle.
I've got a
You've gotta
coil
be
burner electric
very
right
gentle.
now. It
Mhm.
works okay for cast iron, and in fact, I exclusively use cast iron for most of the stuff that I do on that
Mhm.
because it's a buffer for that heat fluctuation. It's not
Yeah.
an even consistent heat with electric stoves. It pulses on and off. So when you're trying to get the right temp to sear a steak or something,
Mhm.
that cast iron pan is going to maintain a fairly even temperature.
Yeah.
While if
Yeah.
I just throw whatever cheapo Walmart skillet on there,
Yeah.
it's going to be 300 degrees 1 minute and 550
Yeah.
the next.
Yeah. Philippine Nomad said that Mike said that that people going back a little bit said they can roast mutton, lamb, and
Mhm.
goat.
Oh yeah,
I've
the
never I've never
cabritos,
cooked
right?
any of those myself.
Yeah,
I've had
they're
them, but I've never cooked them myself,
they're
so
very similar to
Rewilder Life,
venison.
hello.
Very similar to venison, just a little bit fattier typically if they're farmland.
So venison and lamb
Mm-hmm.
and goat, they're all a cousin, for lack of a better term. They're all the
Roughly,
similar,
yeah.
but they don't have what is it, the shoulder blade or this, what is it that lets that you can harness some no, goats you can harness, but a sheep you
Yeah,
can't harness
I've never
because
tried
there's something in the
that as far as go. I know
shoulders.
they use reindeer in some places as a
Oh,
as
that's
to
true.
pull fillets and stuff too. It's probably more of a size type thing. From the butchery side of it, cutting up once you get past the skinning and gutting portion, actually
Mm,
portioning out and cutting up goats, sheep, all very, very similar.
Yeah.
Most four-legged critters kind of come apart the same way.
Yeah. Yeah.
We just call them different things when they come apart.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So Brian's trying to troll you again.
Of
He
course.
says
That's
Starlink.
Brian. Yep. I would love
Starlink.
that. I would love that.
It's expensive,
Somebody,
isn't it?
if people want to throw enough money my way in buying spices, make it worth my while. We'll get some Starlink going.
We'll have to get those communities where we've got 1,000 people each paying $1 a month or something
Build
like
up to
that.
that point. Right, right. Well, hey, if I get a Spice Club built up going here,
There
maybe
you
we'll have
go.
to have
Oh, oh, wait, wait. I did this on purpose. Look, look,
Oh,
look. That
oh, hey, that's
came
right. That was
yesterday.
yesterday.
I
Yeah,
did show that picture yesterday.
good
This
timing.
is the sweet, sugar-free sweet breakfast sausage. I haven't
Mhm.
obviously haven't opened them, haven't used them yet. I will.
Yep.
It says it makes 10 pounds. I'm going to make the assumption that about a quarter teaspoon will do it for one. It says
Yeah,
use
it's 0.39
0.39
ounces per
ounces.
pound. Yep.
Mhm. I don't know if I can measure that low.
If you've
I
got a
mean,
food scale, just get it down to close to point 0.4. It's
I do, but every time I use it, I feel like the feds are watching me.
oh, right,
And
right. Oh, there
rooster
you go.
dust,
Yep, yep,
mild.
yep.
So
That's
yeah, that came yesterday. I was tickled.
cool.
I was tickled to get that.
Yeah,
So I'll be
good
trying
timing.
it.
Good timing.
I've
Good,
got a
good day before the show.
well, yeah, I probably yeah, I should have tried to cook with it, but I haven't yet.
There you
So
go.
yeah, but well, let's see. Oh, odd pieces of meat like beef
Yes.
tongue.
Well, what I like to call in the butcher world offals, like OFFALS, stuff you're not usually typically used to, organ meats and
Hmm.
things like that. You mentioned tongue. That's actually really popular down here. It's really popular in like Hispanic communities, in old Creole style cooking too. Um, you don't see it a lot used in. He weighs his coffee every morning, 49 grams of legal drugs. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I
Well,
gave up weighing mine years
and the
ago when I
scale of that
accepted the
thing,
fact that
that's
I have an addiction.
right. The scale is it's just absolutely necessary on the volume that I'm doing if I'm
Oh
making
yeah, no, yeah,
the
you
amount of
do, you
sausage,
do.
you've got to be accurate too. People expect consistency. So,
Yeah.
but yeah. As far as the beef tongue, that's a tricky one, and I won't say that I've ever cooked a beef tongue. I have ate them multiple times. I'm not averse to eating them. I can tell you right now, they call it taco de lengua down here, and
Ah,
lengua meaning tongue. It's very, very
there
good.
you go. Yeah.
Yeah, it's they typically what they end up doing though is you leave that tongue whole and they boil it for a while, and that outer
Yeah.
skin with the taste buds, then they can peel it off, and then they'll cook it and basically kind of shred it. The texture is a little bit firm and different, but it's you throw it on a taco or something, you really don't know. It's very rich, flavorful meat.
So
Just
you
it's a lot.
don't you don't grind it for like you would have
No, typically
beef
it's
for
more of
tacos or something like.
no, they usually will boil it, peel that, and then continue. If they need to cook it further, they will, or they'll roast it or smoke it, and sort of like pulled, almost like pulled beef,
Hmm.
shredded beef in a way. So
I don't know. I can't say that I've actually had it. I
it,
have watched a lot of shows when of it being cooked, and yeah,
yeah,
they all boiled it first
yep, yep.
to get that outer tough,
We've got a
out of
pretty
there. But
heavy Hispanic population down here, so there's a
yeah.
lot of that cooking. It's a big cultural thing. If you want to eat some good Mexican food, Texas is a good place to come
Oh
try
yeah.
it. If you want something authentic,
Hmm.
and then we have the Tex-Mex blends of it too. So that's there's quite a few opportunities to try it down here. In
Yeah.
fact, if you are raising animals and you have extra tongues laying around, there's a lot of people that will barter those to some of their friends that
Hmm.
will make sure they take care of them when the time comes.
Hmm.
It's in demand. That and hell, they'll even buy whole beef heads and things like that because they like to just cook those down. Those odd cuts. That's a part of their culture. They use the whole
Yeah.
animal and they're used
Well,
to
we
that.
should really.
And you can't typically, unless you're going to like a Hispanic market, you don't just go into a store and buy a lot of those cuts. You can't
Hmm.
just buy a whole pig head off the shelf at
No, you
Walmart
can't.
or places. So
And we were talking the other day about it that we Mr. Holstein and I ordered a half a hog or pig. I don't know. I know there's a difference, but I guess it's size. I don't know. But anyway, we ordered half of one. And
right.
I mentioned that I kind of would like to have these other pieces, and the butcher was like, "Oh no, we use all that for it." So he kind of didn't want to, I don't know, get rid of it, and they just didn't want to. I don't know,
Or
but
they probably didn't want to take the time to save it during the slaughter portion. A lot of that they would just, when they're gutting it, they'll take it, they'll throw it in the bone barrel. He probably has enough volume going through there.
mhm.
He already knows he's not going to remember to tell that kill floor guy we've got to save that stuff, or they just don't want to
and
fiddle with it.
it may not have been petunia that I bought.
That's
It may not be
possible.
petunia that I get. They just know
Depends
how
on the
much.
operation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
how much it weighs, and then make sure that I get the same. I know one way we get a few things smoked, like the bacon and stuff, and I know it takes a lot longer. So we're
That's what I'm in the process
fairly
of doing right now
well.
with
Yeah.
some wild hog that was worth messing with. Is just finishing out the bacon and the hams, and
Are
it's the
you
curing process that takes long.
you're not concerned about parasites and stuff with a wild boar or
It
hog?
really depends on the pigs. It really depends on how they're raised, the environment that they're in.
Mhm.
I don't think there's going to be a significant difference between wild pork that's eating off someone's cattle feeders and someone's pasture raised pork that they're supplemental feeding.
Mm.
They're in the same environment. They're still a pig. They could carry parasites, but so could your deer. So
Now,
could your cattle if you
are
don't
you
want them.
differentiating between wild and feral?
Wild, feral, kind of colloquially the same thing. Wild pigs that have gone feral are the same
Mhm.
species. They are domestic
Right,
hogs that have naturalized to
right.
an area. So
Because I know.
there may be a difference in how they finish out
Mhm.
and how they look, but they're not actually a different type of pig.
Um, and the reason I was asking, I've seen it on, some of those shows that you watch every now and again. But I also know in southern West Virginia there is a population of feral hogs,
Mhm.
and I know there's a season. I don't know if it's a season, but there is a season when you're allowed to hunt them. And but I've often heard that you have to be careful of parasites with them. Now these I don't think would be like sneaking in the cattle feed. Maybe they are. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't know. I
I've
think it
not been
depends on the
around them
area they're
much, but I did.
in. I'm sure it's possible. I've seen
Yeah.
pictures of guys that have cut them open and they've found worms in the meat and stuff like that. But that can happen with your domestic pigs too, depending on the
Hmm.
conditions you keep them in, what is, whether or not you worm, what they are or aren't eating.
Hmm.
Hogs love to eat acorns. If they're foraging where there's natural oaks and whatnot, the tannins in those acorns are a natural dewormer, and that's
Hmm.
probably a big portion of, other than it's a big crop that they could feast on. You'll see animals go for things like that will kind of naturally worm themselves. I can't say I have ever cut up a wild pig personally that was full of parasites.
Okay.
You know,
Because we're again, we're so far removed, and me as well.
oh yeah,
I never accept myself from things except I can't father a child naturally.
right,
I I don't. I have no experience with the feral animals, but I
right,
also know that even if you raise your own, you have to be careful that you cook it thoroughly, even in today's world, because
right,
you may
right.
not.
Quick,
And the
modern
pre-cooked
pork,
stuff that you get at the store, you don't worry about it as much
right?
because they've already. But then if you buy half of a hog like we've done, and then what you're getting is absolute raw that's not been pre-cooked at all, so you
Yeah.
have to be very careful to
Modern
get it
pork is
cooked
not
through.
near as big of an issue or as much of a concern because people are so picky on how we do raise these animals. It's not
Hmm.
the main concern years ago was trichinosis.
Hmm.
I don't think there's been a known case of trichinosis from pork since the 80s that
Really?
I'm aware of. But cooking it correctly, yes, cooking it thoroughly does take care of that. When it comes to the bacon and the hams, that smoked portion, I temp everything as I cook it, and it all comes up to a minimum of 145, usually a little bit higher internal temperature. So it's fully cooked at that point
Hmm.
to where it's food safe, and you won't really have to worry about that. Plus, that curing process, I do use a little bit of curing salt in there to prevent botulism while I do that. So
Yeah.
that does help a lot of it. I mean, when you soak something in salt and sugar and a little bit of curing salt for an extended period of time till it penetrates the entire meat, and then you smoke it to a safe internal temp, if you get sick from that, you probably didn't get sick from the parasite. you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
saw somebody, what was it on? was on something that was talking about that they had just gone through some. They thought they had gotten some food poisoning, and I thought I've heard you talk about how you can your food. I'm not surprised.
That right.
So
More
there's a
often
lot
than
of
not, handling practices after it leaves the
yeah,
butcher can be, I mean, honestly, probably have a bigger impact than anything else.
yeah,
Why do you think if you buy a fresh cut and then you bring it back, maybe depending on their policies, they may take that back, but it goes in the trash. They don't, because once it leaves
yeah,
their
exactly.
custody, they can't guarantee that that was held at a proper safe temp. They don't know how
Right.
long it was sat out. They don't know if you touched it, what you exposed it to, what
Yeah.
your conditions are. There's a lot of things that can happen, contamination after the fact,
Right.
that are way more likely to give you food poisoning than, I mean,
Yeah.
you may have somebody crazy who has to wash all of their chicken breasts and they spread that all over their kitchen and then
Yeah.
they cook a salad, not thinking about
Yeah,
it.
and if you chain of custody of my food is a real concern. Yeah, see, so this rolls into the area of where I'm not quite as upset about government as some others. There's some basic uh, uh, commercial food sanitary standards. I mean, what you do in your own kitchen is your own business.
Right.
But, if I'm going to the store and I'm buying, I don't want it to have something in it
Right.
that's going to make me sick.
I'm
So,
I'm on the fence, and I kind of live in both worlds when it comes to that.
yeah,
I've
that
seen
I'm
the
with
good
you
and the
there.
bad on both sides of the argument too, firsthand.
I'm
I've
with you
been
there.
through all of that. I've dealt with how difficult it is to deal with the government, the USDA, and the state health departments and things like that to
Mhm.
do basic stuff that I feel is a human right. But at the same time, when I go and buy something off the shelf at the grocery store, I it does make me feel better knowing there's some minimal standard that has to
Or
be adhered
supposed to
to
be, yeah.
for somebody where I have meat that I have no way of knowing where it came
Yeah.
from, how it was handled, that somebody I just have to trust that somebody
Yeah.
didn't do something funky, you
Yeah.
know.
And
But
we
at the
don't
same
teach this.
time, I would like to have the freedom myself to make that
Yes.
personal choice. That if I don't want to have to adhere to those standards, if I'd like
Yeah.
to buy directly from a farmer who does it himself, and I can walk in and observe what he's doing, that I can make
Right.
that choice, and he has the right to offer those services. I think
Right.
ground somewhere where it comes to retail hands off, that just you're going in and buying it off of a shelf. Somebody somewhere, whether or not that's government or in a somebody say an organization where you voluntarily say, look, I am committing to this level of inspection. I care about my customers. There's more than
Right.
one way to solve that problem,
Yeah, I agree.
but there needs to be something. There needs to be
The,
some level of assurance that
right.
we know.
Right. The volume of science and what the average farm can't do, to
Right.
to
Oh no.
determine what are safe to. Now, I get that uh, the raw milk argument, for example, in West Virginia, you can trade in raw milk if you buy into the herd share. So if I buy into a herd
Right.
share in another community, I can have milk off that based on whatever I buy into. But
Right.
one of
Right.
the things that people forget is that we don't teach in our schools home ec. We don't teach the type of hygiene and things anymore, and you don't teach that you don't,
Right.
leave your meat sitting on the counter, and it's not okay to wipe the little things that are wiggling on it off, and and what temp. That we need to teach them what
We should be
temperature to
teaching that.
cook
We need
stuff
to
at.
educate that more. And
You're right.
sadly, that's been left out of the schools. So
Yeah.
it's left to people like, with YouTube channels and podcasts to try to teach people basic stuff that we should have known. Years ago, everybody was involved in this stuff. You would
Yeah.
be out
Yeah.
there 2 generations ago, you'd be out in the pasture helping grandpa slaughter that cow because it takes the village to get it done, and it's going to take the village to eat it because we don't have
Yeah.
refrigeration.
Yeah.
You know,
Now Brian's over here fussing and gagging about my government inspected processor left rabbit crap in my
we
packages.
talked about
That
that.
is that is a human error, and there's
It does
always going to
happen. It
be a
does happen.
human
But I will
element
also
until we
say
get
from
full AI and it gets sentient.
I will say from the flip side of that too, having dealt with government inspections and that level of it, there's an insane amount of paperwork that's involved. It's very, very costly. It's very, very time consuming when it comes to the small processor. But I've
Mhm.
also worked with inspectors that literally knew less about what they were doing than I did.
Yeah.
I work with
And I believe
inspectors
it.
that say that
I
every
believe
day
it.
they show up to work with me, they learn
Mhm.
something new. And I'm like, you're supposed to be making sure I know how to do my job.
But you
But
see what
that's
happens then is they've reached the minimum requirement
right.
to be
Sure.
fired, and you have to build a case against them to fire them, and so they're
Right. I
just,
won't ever say that
you know,
those inspectors didn't know what they were doing or couldn't function in their job or
yeah.
whatnot. But that's the other thing though too. I'm a nerd. I learned as much as I possibly could about this job when I got into it. I was
Mhm.
obsessed with learning every little detail about it.
Mhm.
So when an inspector shows up and they're looking at me for some guidance, that wasn't super encouraging to me either. But I'm not saying that all inspections like that. But
Yeah.
there's such a growing need as
Yeah.
the demand increases for that.
There
They're
is.
hiring and hiring and hiring new people. You can't always necessarily rely on that government official somewhere didn't make a mistake. And
Yeah.
we've done a lot of cutbacks on that too. A lot of these big
Yes.
processing
Yes, we have.
plants, they dialed it back to where the
Yeah.
actual workers themselves do the majority of inspection,
Mhm.
and the one inspector that's in-house sees it come down the line and sees the end
Yeah.
results. He doesn't see what was trimmed off. He doesn't see how it was handled before that. He just
Yeah.
visually inspects and sees those results and
Right.
signs off on them.
Yeah.
So
And we also food is different now. You
right.
see it, you see it especially with tomatoes, the different varieties of tomatoes. Some of them are high acid, some of them are low acid.
Yep.
I have a friend who I think a lot of, but I tell you, I would never eat anything she home canned because I've seen her do things that are
Yep.
just not right, especially with today's and the difference in. I mean, oh yeah, grandma used to do that in the 1900s. Yeah.
Right.
Hmm.
Uh-huh.
Grandma, put a lot of people, the soil was different, the food was
Yeah,
different,
the canning debate,
and
it's interesting. There are some people that swear you can do some stuff that's not quite
yeah,
USDA. I think
yeah,
they probably err way more on the side of caution there. But
yeah,
yeah, there's stuff you really want to be careful with because botulism
and
really will kill you,
and
and
there's people,
there's no cure to it.
right, and there's YouTubes
Or there
out
is,
there
but you
all
have to
over the,
use the cure
well,
first.
there you go. There's YouTubes out there that tell a lot, and this comes back to failure to provide the basic educations
Yep.
in school because you're not doing it at home. There's very
Right.
few real. I mean, if you look at the population of the United States and you do all the math and everything, yeah, the farm community, agricultural community still, on the ball knows what's going on. The
Right.
cities and stuff, they don't. And these young people who are getting into government jobs and you know into positions of power have no clue how it works out in the rest of the world. And
Right.
so even you mentioned bone stock earlier, and I love bone stock, but
Mhm.
we don't tell people that, okay, so you're going to crack the big bones to get to the marrow. You could potentially be contaminating your kitchen when you do that because those raw
Yeah.
bones and that raw marrow, there could be stuff in there, and so you need to
Oh yeah, for sure.
sanitize all your surfaces after you do that. But
Wash
how
your
many
hands.
people just kind of wipe stuff off with
Right.
a
And like
rag
I
that's been
mentioned
in the
earlier,
dish?
the whole washing the meat thing. It's like you first of all, you're not doing anything if you're washing
Mhm.
your chicken breasts in your sink. You're spreading whatever might have been on there to every other surface that you touch and that you got wet and that
Yeah,
splashed everywhere.
yeah,
And guess what? If there's bacteria on that chicken, it's still in the
yeah,
damn chicken even after you hit it with water.
yeah, yeah,
Cooking it will actually kill that though. That's
yeah,
why we cook our food,
yeah,
you know. But people, like you said, people are not educated. People don't know
yeah.
because we've been so separated from our food.
Right.
Everybody's now focused on this idea of maybe we can't rely on these systems. Maybe we need to be a
Hmm.
little bit more self-reliant. We should get closer to our food. Well, that also means taking personal accountability.
Yeah,
I mean, you need to
yeah,
educate yourself and learn what's going on. And Rachel hit that down there in the comments too, where she said she supports the small butchers or do it herself for
yeah,
that reason. It's good that we have a level of inspection when it comes to the retail cuts and things like that. But if you are truly concerned about it
hmm,
and you want to really know, you need to take some level of personal accountability. And I feel a lot better going directly to the place that does my butchery or knows how the animal's raised, being somewhat involved with it. If I'm not doing it myself, I want to know that I can trust these people.
yeah. And
I'd like to be like,
she
oh, look,
mentions.
they seem to know what they're doing. They've got a nice, clean facility. They seem to be able to handle this in a proper manner,
Mhm.
and you build that rapport and that
Yeah,
individual trust. And most of the time, then not only are you more connected, you built a community, you also have somebody that you can fall back on when shit gets
yeah,
kind of hard. Because if you are
yeah,
their customer, they're going to take
yeah.
care of you.
Yeah, Rachel
Walmart's
mentions
not.
homeschool, which is an excellent option.
Yes.
But you also have to think there are people who homeschool that don't necessarily know. You know,
Right.
they're
Well, you're
only
getting
doing what
homeschooled
they
right
need
now.
to pass the government required exams. They may
Right.
be teaching wrong, or they may have curriculum that's wrong. It's 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 a never ending cycle, really.
Oh
So,
yeah.
but
Oh
it
yeah.
comes back to, yeah, we the agri-sciences have good and bad, but
Right.
over the years they have found certain things that work and reduce the chance of um,
Mhm.
famine,
There's a lot of stuff where
disease.
people will err on the side of caution and maybe
Hmm.
will recommend practices that are overkill because they know that people are going to make mistakes and have
Yeah,
those levels of human error. If you
yeah,
choose to not play by those recommendations, that's your personal choice. Just do
right.
so in it
Yeah,
from an educated place.
yeah,
If you
yeah.
decide that, okay, I'm going to water bath can this bone broth, and
Hmm.
I feel like my handling practices were safe, and I think I've done this before, I think it's going to be fine, that's on you. That's on
Hmm.
you. But
Hmm.
don't sell it to somebody unknown. You know,
Right,
if you
right.
are going to age your meat a little bit longer than you typically would, and maybe do some funky stuff, maybe you're going to do some fermentation. That's fine. If you want to
Hmm.
eat it yourself, go knock yourself out. I don't care if you eat the lilacs in the yard either. That's your personal choice.
Yeah,
But make an educated decision on it. And like,
right.
yeah, with the homeschooling, yeah, sure, there are people out there who are educating their children that are probably not giving them a proper education. There's kids in public schools that aren't getting a proper
Oh yeah,
education
yeah.
either.
That's all the way
But
around. Yeah.
as a parent, as a
Hmm.
consumer, as an
Hmm.
individual, take responsibility for what's going on
Yeah.
in your life. And yeah, like I said, homeschooling, yeah, you're getting homeschooled right now. Maybe the
Yeah.
government says your schooling stops at 12th grade, and you can go and pay somebody to get further education or whatnot.
Hmm.
This is education right here,
Sure it
and
is.
that
Yeah.
education needs to continue. I don't care if you're 95 years old, you can
Yeah.
still open up a podcast and learn how to make jerky, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that, I think that's really important for people to understand
Yeah.
too. They feel like it's the excuse of, well, I wasn't taught this in school. Nobody taught me. Well,
Right.
you have a computer in your fucking pocket. Sorry, there it is. You have
There
it
it
in your pocket.
is.
Open
There
it
it
up.
is.
Open it up and learn.
Yeah.
You have access to the entirety of knowledge at your fingertips right now. If you don't use that, that's on you.
Yeah. But you also have to balance that with, yeah, it's there, but not every one of them you
Oh,
see.
true, true. Vet
Not
your
everywhere.
sources.
We were
Don't trust
talking at
everything that you do see. You're right.
Yeah,
That's a great
Billy
place to say.
Mays will you there you go. We was talking about
Absolutely.
Billy Mays a
I
little bit.
same thing. I went off on it was there's colorful language on a TikTok last night. It's the second time I've seen something from this guy. He's this bodybuilder roid freak talking about ways to take shitty store meat that's contaminated. It's got toxins in the fat, and how to boil the fat out and add avocado
Mm,
oil and make it healthy. And I'm like, everything about this is wrong. So
yeah.
I just kind of lost it. But you know what? People love those videos because they like
And,
seeing somebody lose their shit
and
about it.
Tide Pods, for heaven's sakes,
Right.
Tide Pods.
There
Whoever
are
thought?
tons of idiots out there on social
Yeah.
media
Yeah.
and all over the place, and even in some academic spaces, giving misinformation, but just
Yeah.
telling out there teaching wrong shit. So do vet
Right.
your sources, check it
Yeah.
out, and at the end of the day, you have to make the educated choice
That's right.
yourself.
That's right. You're right. I don't disagree
That
with
comes
that.
around to everything, though. You
It
know,
does. It
it's
does.
just sad that we have to sit here
Not
and
just food.
say that as a society,
Hmm.
people don't know how to cook or handle their food anymore.
Right.
That used to be a survival skill that everybody, in some way or another, or at least one primary person in the household, was pretty skilled at, because guess what? If you don't eat, you die.
Yeah.
But we've become so reliant on centralized systems now that responsibility has been taken away from us. So we haven't been required to learn these things. So now, when you're in a situation where you need to learn how to cook for yourself, how many people don't know how to freaking microwave mac and cheese? You know, there's people who
Ooh.
just don't know how to boil water.
Yeah, I'd rather boil it than microwave.
Well,
Ugh.
I would too, but you literally have people who don't know anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't come with
Yeah.
directions on the back of the box. They don't
And
know
if
how to
they
cook.
can read those directions, I I know plenty of people who get out of 12th grade and can barely, they can't fill out a job application.
I saw a
You
post
know.
from someone the other day complaining about how they feel like they're suffering through malnutrition because Uber Eats can't deliver to their home, and they've been living on cereal. Or
Well, I mean,
do something about it, you know?
yeah, yeah, this goes so far beyond what we were originally. See, this is what I can do. I can end up and I can do this for hours. I have to be
Rabbit
careful.
hole.
Yeah. Yes,
I do a
rabbit
whole
hole.
podcast of rabbit holes about food.
Yeah. And you're doing one tonight too, aren't you?
I am 6
Who you
p.m.
got on
6
tonight?
p.m. Central. It's actually going to be just me doing quick
Okay.
updates on a lot of the stuff I've got going on. Catch up. The
Hmm.
last couple interviews have been, or last couple shows have been interview shows. So I'm going to
Hmm.
do a kind of a quick catch everybody up on what I've got going on, projects that are coming up, things I'm trying to hammer out, and then probably next week I'll either have. I may have Kyle back on, or I may have a couple other people who I haven't had on the show in a while that I want to circle back to or have asked me to. So I'd
Okay.
like to get another one cranked out. I may do an extra interview episode like on a Saturday, one of these weeks too. Now that I'm starting to wind the deer stuff down, I've got a little bit more
Yeah.
flexibility on that. So it's me really having to devote the time to it.
Brian's talking something about soup
There's
instructions. That's
instructions
probably
there.
before I started following his cast. So
Yes,
I
yes,
guess it was
that would be a
careful.
good one. Yeah. Oh, he must be talking about the. I brought them some stuff. They were really sick over Thanksgiving, and I was cooking Thanksgiving dinner and stuff. So I had made up a bunch of stuff, and I made some turkey soup. I put some interesting and colorful instructions on the label.
Are they PG-13?
Oh, I think nothing I gave them was PG-13. There was some fun stuff. So.
Well, share with folks a little bit about. Of course, now I just showed those two packages of spices that you
Oh, yeah.
you put together yourself. You blend them
Hmm.
yourself. You measure them. You sell them. Share a
Yeah.
little bit about that.
Yeah. So after I kind of got into butchery 8, 9 years ago when I moved down here, I've worked for multiple different deer processors, and most of these guys they're known locally for their sausage. They produce
Hmm.
sausage and stuff all year long, and people will bring their animals to them to get them made that way. Worked for two different competitors. The second one ended up getting more into the large livestock and learned all that in and out too. Before I branched out on my own because I decided I wanted to do things better and a higher standard than either of those. So I really got into that, and I do a couple hundred deer a year at one of my good customers' places. They've got a small private butcher facility that we just do the wild game there seasonally, and it's just kind of grown and grown and grown. Like the first year, halfway through, I had to upgrade my smokers because I just not did not have enough room to handle the volume of sausage people were asking for.
Hmm.
And as that's gone on, I've gone more towards my own seasoning blends or doctoring up their seasoning blends and shifting more to my own recipes, and ended up at a couple of festivals doing some barbecue. People really seemed to like it, and I kind of got the kick in the ass around the same time I started my podcast of why aren't you selling your own seasonings? I get a couple customers every year that ask me. It's just not something I've ever gotten into blending
Hmm.
and dealing with that myself. So I've dove headfirst into that. Really been getting into it. People have really been liking like the smaller batch, like shaker seasonings though. Like that rooster dust is more of a barbecue. Put it on your chicken type seasoning. I've
Hmm.
focused more in my career on the sausage and stuff like that. I'm doing large bulk orders of that. So that's where I started. But most of my audience aren't making 40 pounds of sausage at a time and things like that. So I'm
Hmm.
offering that, and I'm starting to get it more into the hand blended seasonings.
Hmm.
And I've had a lot of fun with some of it because I'll do some oddball small batch stuff I could never do on a large scale. Like I was posting some pictures yesterday, taking veggies and salts and stuff like that and
I
smoking it
saw
while
that.
I've got the smoker going on, making my own dehydrated small batch blends. And I want to start offering those though to my following and my community on like a monthly
Hmm.
basis. So what we're probably going to do is start something like a seasoning of the month kind of club.
Oh, that'd be
So
fun.
people could sign up and basically some offering that's a standard like that rooster dust or
Hmm.
whatnot. They could get basically like a 4 ounce pack or a 2 ounce glass shaker or whatever. But monthly they would get one of those and then one of the. I mean, they could sign up for multiple. I'm sure they'll have some options, but you get that, and then also as a subscriber, you would be one of the few that would get the small batch stuff. That this is the one time you're ever going to get it. You know,
Yeah.
it's not you can't go buy it on the shelf. I'm never going to make big batches of it. I just get creative with it, so you get to try that, and it's always changing seasonally type stuff. So that'll be my subscription service. I've struggled with that for a little while of how do I do something that I can monetize it and basically make it a subscription type thing. Because if I do it, I want it to be something that I can really offer value to somebody, not the same stuff that everybody else is doing. I mean, I can monetize my online content and all that fun
Yeah.
stuff, but I want to take what I'm skilled at, my value, and offer that to my people. So the seasoning thing has really kind of taken off there. And as far as the sausage seasoning, the one that you got to try out, that was I did just an initial test batch.
Mm-hmm.
Took my regular sweet sausage seasoning that I'm working on, hopefully going large scale with, and I did a small batch blended version with no sugar, but with stevia extract. So it's all natural alternative sweetener. And I had no idea how that was going to work with meat, but it turned out really good. All of my test batches I made myself were really good. Everything I've sent out to everybody has gotten good feedback so far. So I think we're going to go ahead and do that. It's just that it's a little bit different. I don't know if I'll ever be able to go big, broad scale with that, because asking a seasoning company that I work with to blend something bizarre like this stevia extract, it's probably not a game they're going to play. I have no problem doing that for a lot of these folks who are really getting into the keto. There's a lot of demand for, I'd like sausage, I'd like seasoned meat, I'd like to have these things, but I don't want carbs in my diet. So that's I already need to make another batch of that, because I've got one person that wants to buy the last little pack I have of that. So
well, I'm anxious to try it. I don't have any unseasoned sausage or ground pork. I have it. It's just in the freezer, so I don't have it thawed, and that just came yesterday. And so I'll try that. And sausage is not. I don't usually offer sausage with the breakfast here at Holstein House, but that I may make the exception for this. Of course, for those types of things, and folks who are beat to death with the podcast, I only do certain things for direct book guests. If you're booking through Airbnb, you're going to get a very nice stay, and you're going to get very good hospitality, and you're going to get decent breakfast. But the special things, the hand ground coffee is only going to be for direct book guests. The chocolate's only going to be direct book
offering
guests.
those extra perks.
Yeah.
Things you can't just get anywhere. You're not going to just get at the old Best Western,
That's right.
You're selling an experience.
This might work out very well, because especially if I'm going to get my my scales out to no, I don't fool with that. Although my dad did ask me, he saw I had it because I was doing sourdough, and I was feeding the sourdough starter and stuff, and I measure it out by weight, not by volume. So
that's the only accurate way to do it.
He'd seen the scale that was out, and he said, "What are you doing over there?" Dad, no, Dad.
I'm addicted to
God
food.
love my dad. Yeah, I am. And it shows. That's why staging this camera is so important. I can hide just about anything depending on how I stage this camera.
Right.
No, I'm anxious. I've got to get some of the ground pork out of the freezer.
Yeah. And if anybody has something they're looking for as far as seasoning, shoot me a message. If it's not something that I have out there that I'm offering right now, I'm looking to add a few more different lines of things that I want to have, like probably about half dozen offerings or whatnot to put up before I really launch that seasoning of the month. But I'll custom blend stuff too. We had somebody who's in the community here locally that was basically gifted a deer, and they wanted to make a whole ton of sausage themselves at home. So they messaged me and said, "Hey, look, we like your seasoning and stuff. We want to do the sausage ourselves. So here's the amount of meat I'm working with." So, and they want to do jalapeno cheddar. They wanted half normal cheddar. I calculated it all out by weight, vacuum sealed it up, labeled it, gave them a percentage of it to use, per pound if they wanted to split it up and do multiple batches, and they just came and picked it up. So I don't mind doing. If you call me up and say, "I've got a 15-pound brisket and I really want a brisket rub," say less. I'll mix it up for you. What's your address? We'll get it shipped off to you.
Yeah.
So
I do have in the show notes, I do have a link to your website and a link to your YouTube channel, so they should be able to find it that way.
Yep.
If they haven't.
The website will hopefully be, I've got a lot of work to get done on that. I've started putting some stuff up on the cart there. I think the regular sweet breakfast sausage is listed. But yeah, there's going to be a lot more coming there when I get more web time. But if there's something that you're looking for and you don't see on there, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Telegram's the easiest way to find me, but send me an email or something, and I'll usually make it happen. If I don't have it around, I can whip it.
You want to share your Telegram, because I don't think I put that on there.
It should just it should just be at Renegade Butcher, or it'll be at Liberty Meat. But you can find Liberty Meat Chat as well. T.me/Liberty Meat Chat is my chat that's connected to my consulting and the podcast, and that's where we all hang out most of the time.
Okay.
So, or
Well,
worst case scenario, let Robin know, and she'll
yeah,
point my
yeah,
way
we'll
too.
get you connected if you want. We'll
Yeah.
get you connected. But well, we're rolling right at an hour, 59 minutes and 45 seconds. So I'm going to wrap it
Oh,
up. Thank you so much for
no,
coming
no
on. It
problem.
really
Thanks
was
for having
fun,
me on.
and it was enlightening. Believe it or not, it was enlightening, and
Amazing.
I think we were able to hold the foul language to a minimum. You did slip one in there, but that's
Tell you
okay.
what, just
I
the
know
one.
that was a challenge for you. You did
People
good.
wouldn't know the Renegade Butcher was on the podcast if there wasn't at least some foul language.
That's all right. I don't jump up and down and get all crazy about it. And I know there are people out there who say, well, we won't go there. But anyway, it is what it is. That is part of who you are, and I understand it. And I appreciate you holding back a little bit there on that. So, but I will let you go. We'll have this split. It'll be up on fountain.fm at the
Oh, awesome.
Holstein House podcast, and it'll be also obviously on the YouTube here. And then I do have a Rumble account. I will be putting it up on Rumble.
Excellent.
So have it all over the place. And I hope you have
Well,
a great day. And don't let the
planning
folks
on
there
it.
in that parking lot aggravate you too much
Oh, I don't
because,
think they will today. So
well,
I
you take
appreciate you
care.
having me
And
on.
thanks all you guys for participating. And we'll see you the next time.
Take
Bye.
care.